The Great Hall of Nexus Prime was full of noise. 200 species had gathered in the massive chamber, their voices mixing together like waves in a storm. Some flew on small wings, others slithered on long tails. A few floated in special tanks of water, but all of them had come for the same reason. The Empire had called an emergency meeting. Admiral stood near the human section with his hands behind his back. He was 58 years old, with gray hair cut short and a face that showed no emotion. Next to him stood Ambassador Park, a woman known across the galaxy for her calm nature. She could smile while the world burned around her. Behind them both sat Counselor O, the head of human intelligence. She watched everything with sharp eyes that missed nothing. The year was 3047, and for 1,000 years, humans and the Empire had lived in peace. It was the longest peace treaty in galactic history. Other species often talked about how remarkable it was. They were warriors by nature. Their insect-like bodies were built for fighting. Yet somehow, humans had kept peace with them for 10 centuries. Many species thought they understood why. Humans seemed soft. They had spent the last 1,000 years trading goods, healing the sick, and helping smaller species build their worlds. They had no visible military. Their ships were designed for cargo, not war. When other species fought, humans offered to talk instead. The galaxy saw them as gentle creatures who feared conflict. The great doors opened, and High Warlord Al entered the hall. He was massive, standing 3 meters tall with 4 arms and a body covered in dark armor plates. His eyes glowed red, and when he walked, the floor shook under his weight. Behind him marched 100 soldiers in perfect formation. The hall fell silent. Al walked to the center platform and looked around at the gathered species. His mandibles clicked together in what passed for a smile. 1,000 years ago, he began, his voice booming through the chamber, my ancestors made a mistake. They signed a treaty with the humans. They believed humans were worth keeping alive. They were wrong. Whispers spread through the hall. Elder Consul, the ancient representative of the species, leaned forward in his seat. His species had existed for over 100,000 years. They had seen empires rise and fall. And right now, worry filled his old eyes. Al raised one of his arms. Today, I declare the peace treaty ended. Today, the Empire declares war on humanity. The hall exploded with gasps and cries. Several smaller species immediately fled toward the exits. Others began talking rapidly into communication devices. This was the biggest news in 1,000 years. Al was not finished. You think humans are strong, you think they can defend themselves, look at this. A massive hologram appeared above his head. It showed space filled with warships. Thousands of them, tens of thousands. The image kept expanding, showing more and more vessels hidden among asteroids in the outer rim of the galaxy. 50,000 warships, Al announced proudly. We have been building in secret for 300 years. The humans have nothing. They will fall in weeks. Their planets will burn. Their people will serve us as slaves. This is the destiny of the Empire. The alien species in the hall looked toward the human section. Many expected to see fear. Some expected begging. A few thought the humans might faint from shock. Admiral stood perfectly still. His face remained calm, as if someone had just told him about the weather. Slowly, he turned his head to look at Ambassador. She looked back at him. And then, both of them began to chuckle. It was soft at first, just a small laugh that barely made any sound. But in the silent hall, everyone heard it. The two humans were laughing. The entire assembly froze. This was not the reaction anyone expected. Al's red eyes narrowed. You find this amusing, human. You laugh at your own death. Admiral stopped laughing and straightened his uniform. When he spoke, his voice was calm and steady. My apologies, High Warlord. We do not laugh at death. We laugh because we have been waiting for this moment for a very long time. Ambassador stepped forward. Her smile never faded. 50,000 ships, she said thoughtfully. That is impressive, truly. You have worked hard to hide them from us." She paused and tilted her head slightly. "Or perhaps I should say, you believed you were hiding them from us." Al's mandibles stopped clicking. "What do you mean?" Did not answer his question. Instead, she looked around the great hall at all the alien species watching. "To all the peoples gathered here today, we thank you for witnessing this declaration. Humanity accepts the Empire's declaration of war. We will respond appropriately." She turned back to Al. "We were wondering when you would finally stop hiding." A cold silence fell over the hall. Al tried to read the human's expression, but there was nothing to read. No fear, no anger, just calm confidence that made no sense. Elder Consul slowly stood from his seat. His ancient voice cracked as he spoke. "High Warlord, I must advise you to reconsider. There are old records, sealed records. There is a reason we do not speak of certain things." "Silence, old one," Al snapped. "Your species is dying. You are relics of a forgotten age. The do not fear ghost stories." Sat back down heavily. His eyes met Admiral's across the hall. The human gave him a small nod and looked away. He suddenly seemed very tired and very sad. In the back of the human section, Counselor received a message on her personal device. She read it quickly, then smiled. She leaned forward and whispered something to Admiral. He nodded once, typed a short response on her device. The message contained only 3 words: "Wake them up." Somewhere far away, on a dozen human worlds, that message arrived at the same moment. Deep underground, in places that had been silent for 1,000 years, machines began to hum. Lights flickered on in endless tunnels. Computers that had been sleeping since before any living human was born began to wake. In the great hall of Nexus Prime, the alien species watched the humans leave through a side door. They walked calmly, without hurry, as if they had just attended a boring meeting about trade agreements. High Warlord Al watched them go. For just one moment, a strange feeling passed through him. It was not quite fear. It was more like the feeling a hunter gets when he realizes the prey he has been chasing has suddenly stopped running. He pushed the feeling aside. The humans were bluffing. They had to be. No species could hide true power for 1,000 years. Could they? The war had begun, and the galaxy would soon learn that some species become peaceful not because they are weak, but because they remember what happens when they are not. 1 week after the declaration, every news network in the galaxy was talking about the same thing. The war between the Empire and humanity had begun, and everyone agreed on one point: the humans were going to die. Was a journalist from the neutral species. He had covered wars before, but this one seemed different. There was no excitement among other species, only sadness. Everyone liked humans. They were kind. They helped without asking for payment. They healed the sick and fed the hungry. And now they were going to be destroyed by the most powerful military force in the galaxy. "The fleet has begun its advance toward human space," reported to his viewers. "Military experts estimate that human colonies will begin falling within 2 to 3 weeks. Complete extinction is expected within 3 months." He paused and looked directly into the camera. "I have traveled to many human worlds over my career. They are good people. It is a tragedy that they must end this way." Across the galaxy, billions of beings watched the news and felt sorry for humanity. Some sent messages of support. Others offered to take human refugees. A few brave species offered to fight alongside the humans, but their militaries were too small to make any difference. No one offered hope. There was none to offer. On Earth, the mood was strangely calm. Stood in the main control room of the Planetary Defense Network. He was a chief engineer, responsible for the orbital systems that protected humanity's home world. For 1,000 years, those systems had done nothing. They were old and forgotten, buried under layers of peaceful technology. Now they were waking up. "Status report," said to his team. A young technician looked up from her console. The sleeper's protocol is at 60% activation. All major systems are coming online. Nodded, the sleeper's protocol. He had learned about it during his training 30 years ago. Back then, he thought it was a legend, a story told to make engineers feel important. Now he understood it was very real. Increase power to the orbital stations, he ordered, and send a message to Fleet Command. Tell them the garden is ready. Far from Earth, at the edge of human space, a small destroyer called the Silent Mountain drifted among asteroids. Captain Lee sat in the command chair, reading reports from the front lines. The Vanguard fleet was approaching. 300 warships, sent ahead to test human defenses. "Captain," said Lieutenant Shin from her navigation station, "they will be in range within 2 hours." Closed his reports and stood up. He was not young anymore, but his mind was sharp. He had trained for this moment his entire life, even when he believed it would never come. "How many ships do we have in this sector?" he asked. Checked her instruments. "Just us, Captain, 1 destroyer." "Good," smiled slightly. "That should be enough." The bridge crew exchanged glances. They trusted their captain, but the math seemed impossible. 1 ship against 300. 2 hours later, the Vanguard dropped out of faster-than-light travel. Commander stood on the bridge of his flagship, looking at the sensor readings with amusement. 1 human ship, just 1. "Open a channel," he ordered. "I want to hear them beg." The communication screen flickered to life, showing Captain's calm face. "Human vessel," Commander said with a clicking laugh. "You are alone against 300 warships. Surrender now and I will make your death quick." Did not react to the threat. He simply looked at the commander with patient eyes. "You have entered human space," said quietly. "Turn back. This is your only warning." Laughed so hard his mandibles shook. "Your only warning? You are 1 ship human, 1 small, weak ship. I will destroy you and eat your crew for dinner." "I understand," replied. "I tried." He cut the communication. Commander turned to his weapons officer. "Destroy them." 100 ships opened fire at once. Energy beams and missiles filled the space where the Silent Mountain floated. The attack was overwhelming, enough firepower to destroy a small moon. When the light faded, the Silent Mountain was gone. Smiled with satisfaction. Humans, all talk and no strength, resume course toward their colonies. "Commander," a sensor officer said nervously, "I am detecting something strange." "What is it?" "The human ship, it is not destroyed, it is behind us." Spun around. On the main screen, the Silent Mountain had somehow appeared at the rear of the fleet. Before anyone could react, it opened fire. Human weapons were different from anything they had seen before. The beams did not just damage ships. They passed through shields like they did not exist. They cut through armor like a knife through water. In 60 seconds, 20 ships exploded. "Impossible," screamed. "All ships target that destroyer." The fleet turned to attack, but the Silent Mountain was already moving. It did not fly like a normal ship. It danced between the vessels, appearing and disappearing, striking from impossible angles. Every shot it fired destroyed a ship. Every missile it launched hit its target. In 4 minutes, 47 ships were burning wreckage. Then the Silent Mountain simply vanished. One moment it was there, the next it was gone. Not destroyed, just gone. Commander stood on his bridge, surrounded by the images of dead ships and dying crew. His hands were shaking. This was not possible. 1 human destroyer against 300 warships, and the human had won without taking a single hit. "Commander," his communication officer whispered. The human ship sent a final message before it disappeared. "Show me." The message appeared on screen. It contained only 2 sentences. "That was a warning. The next time we will not stop." Across the galaxy, the journalist received the battle footage from leaked communications. He watched it 7 times before he believed what he was seeing. That night, he went on air with a different kind of report. "I must apologize to my viewers," he said, his voice shaking. "I was wrong about the humans. We were all wrong. I do not know what is happening. I do not know what humans really are. But I no longer believe they are going to die. I believe something else is happening, something old, something the galaxy has forgotten." He held up a data pad showing the footage. One ship destroyed 47 in 4 minutes. One ship. "My friends, I think the Empire has made a terrible mistake. And I think we are about to learn why humans spent 1,000 years pretending to be peaceful." On the High Warlord Al watched the same footage in his private chamber. He watched it again and again, trying to understand what he had seen. How did one ship move like that? How did their weapons ignore shields? Where did the ship go when it disappeared? For the first time since declaring war, Al felt doubt. Not fear. Not yet. Just a small voice in the back of his mind asking a question he could not answer. What else were the humans hiding? Deep in space, Captain Lee sat in his quarters on the silent mountain. He was writing a letter to his daughter back on Earth. He told her he loved her. He told her to be brave. He told her that what was coming would be hard to watch. Then he sealed the letter and returned to the bridge. "Set course for the next engagement point," he ordered. "We have work to do." The galaxy was watching, and humanity was about to remind them why some monsters choose to wear the masks of gentle creatures. 1 month into the war, the Empire had lost 2,000 ships. They had not conquered a single human colony. They had not even reached one. Sub-Warlord stood in the tactical center of the command ship, staring at maps covered in red marks. Each red mark was a lost fleet. Each red mark was thousands of dead soldiers. And each red mark appeared in places that made no sense. Human ships came from nowhere. They attacked without warning. They destroyed vessels with weapons that should not exist. Then they disappeared before anyone could fight back. It was not a war. It was a hunt, and they were the prey. "This is impossible," muttered to himself. "Where are these ships coming from? How are they doing this?" High Warlord Al refused to admit any problems. He kept sending more fleets. He kept promising victory, but was a strategist. He looked at numbers, not promises, and the numbers told him something was very wrong. Late one night, went to the old archives. These were records from ancient times, stored in secure vaults that few ever visited. He searched through thousands of files, looking for anything about humanity. Most records showed exactly what everyone expected. Humans as traders, humans as healers, humans as peaceful diplomats, but then found something different. A file marked with a seal he did not recognize, a seal that was over 1,000 years old. He opened it. The file was incomplete. Large sections had been deleted or damaged, but what remained made his blood turn cold. "The Silence War," he read aloud. "Year 2036, the Imperium declared war on the human called Earth. They sent a fleet of 10,000 ships. They planned to enslave humanity and take their planet." Kept reading. His hands began to shake. 11 days after the first attack, the Imperium no longer existed. All planets destroyed, all ships eliminated, all life forms terminated. No survivors, no records, no mercy. The file ended with a single note from an observer. The humans did not just defeat them, they erased them. They removed every trace of their existence from the galaxy. "We have asked the humans to stop. They have agreed. They have promised peace. We pray they keep that promise. If they ever choose war again, no species will survive." Sat in silence for a long time. Then he went to find High Warlord Al. On Mars, deep underground in the Human Defense Command bunker, General Ryu was holding a meeting. Around him sat the most important military minds in humanity. They were planning the next phase of the war. "They are confused and afraid," General said, "but they have not surrendered. Their pride will not allow it. We need to increase pressure. A hologram appeared on the table. It showed the locations of all remaining fleets. We have been using only 5% of our true military strength, the general continued. It is time to show them more, but not everything, not yet. Doctor, the keeper of the real archives, stood near the back of the room. She was a historian, not a soldier, but she understood why she was important. She was the one who remembered. General, she said softly, there is a journalist asking questions, unnamed. He is searching for information about the Silence War. Others will follow. General nodded. Let them search. It is time the galaxy remembered, but control the story. We do not want panic, we want understanding. Bowed slightly. I will prepare a statement, something truthful but not terrifying. Later that day, met on a neutral station. The journalist was nervous but determined. He had spent weeks gathering fragments of the truth. Doctor, he said, I have found pieces of something. Something about a war before the peace treaty. Something about a species called the, can you tell me more? Looked at him with sad eyes. Do you really want to know? Some truths are heavy to carry. I am a journalist. Truth is my duty. Took a deep breath. 1,047 years ago, they attacked Earth. They killed millions of humans in the first assault. They sent messages promising to enslave our entire species. She paused. We tried to negotiate. They laughed at us. They said humans were weak. They said we would make good slaves, so we stopped talking, and we started fighting. Leaned forward. What happened? We destroyed them completely, every ship, every planet, every man, woman, and child of their species. We did not just defeat them. We removed them from existence. It took 11 days. His recorder almost slipped from his fingers. That is genocide. Yes, said simply, it was. And when we were finished, we looked at what we had done. We looked at the empty space where an entire civilization had existed, and we were horrified, not at them, at ourselves, at what we were capable of becoming. She stood and walked to a window. We chose peace after that, not because we were weak, because we were too strong. We sealed our weapons, we hid our ships, we pretended to be harmless for 1,000 years. We hoped no one would ever force us to become that thing again. And now, asked quietly, now they have given us no choice, but we are trying to be different this time. We are trying to win without becoming monsters again. That night published the story. Within hours, every species in the galaxy knew the truth about humanity. The reaction was mixed. Some felt fear, others felt respect. A few felt something like hope. On the command ship, High Warlord Al read the same story. He threw his data pad across the room and screamed in rage. He did not believe it. He could not believe it. Humans were soft. Humans were weak. This was propaganda. Lies designed to frighten the into surrender. I will not be fooled by ghost stories, he declared. We attack at dawn, full assault on the human outer colonies. Sub-Warlord said nothing. He had read the original files. He knew the stories were true. That night, while Al slept in his private quarters, something impossible happened. Bora led a team of 12 soldiers from the Ghost Division. They were the best of the best. Soldiers trained in techniques that most humans never learned. They had boarded the command ship without detection. They had walked through corridors filled with guards. They had disabled security systems designed by the most advanced engineers. And they had done it all without making a sound. Bora stood on the bridge of the enemy flagship. Around her, officers slept at their stations, drugged by gas they never noticed. She walked to the main command chair and pulled out a small tool. For the next 10 minutes, she carved a message into the metal of the chair. When she was finished, she looked at her work with satisfaction. The message read, "We could have killed you all tonight. We chose not to. Surrender." Bora and her team left the same way they came, silent, invisible like ghosts. In the morning, High Warlord Al entered his bridge. He saw his officers waking up confused. He saw the chaos in their eyes. Then he saw his chair. He read the message. For the first time in his life, Al felt real fear. Not fear of death, fear of something worse. Fear of an enemy he could not see, could not fight, could not understand. He touched the carved words with one trembling finger. They had been on his ship. They had been on his bridge. They could have killed everyone. And they had chosen mercy instead. That somehow was the most terrifying part of all. 6 months into the war, the human fleet finally revealed itself. High Warlord Al stood on his command bridge, watching the sensor screens with growing horror. Ships were appearing everywhere. Human warships emerging from hidden bases scattered across the galaxy, from asteroid fields, from empty space, from places that had scanned 100 times and found nothing. "Count them," he ordered. "Count every single one." His officers worked in frantic silence. Minutes passed. The count kept rising. 40,000 ships confirmed, one officer reported. Wait, 50,000, 60, 70. The final count stopped at 80,000. 80,000 human warships, all emerging at once. More ships than the entire empire had ever possessed. More ships than most species could build in 1,000 years. "This cannot be real," Al whispered. "They cannot have more ships than us. They cannot." But the sensors did not lie. For 1,000 years, while humans played the role of peaceful traders and gentle healers, they had been preparing for this day. Every cargo ship had a secret. Every colony had an underground factory. Every generation of humans had added to the hidden fleet, waiting for the day they might be needed. And now they were needed. Near the pilot, Ma sat in the cockpit of his fighter. He was the leader of Black Sun Squadron, 24 of the best pilots humanity had ever trained. Around him, thousands of human ships formed into attack patterns. "All pilots, this is Admiral," a calm voice came over the radio. "Today we show what we truly are, but remember who we choose to be. Disable when possible, destroy only when necessary. We are not here for revenge. We are here to end this war." Smiled. The Admiral was a good man. He understood that winning a war was not the same as winning the peace that came after. "Black Sun Squadron, form up," ordered. "Stay close, stay fast, stay alive." The battle began. Human pilots flew like nothing they had ever seen. Their ships moved in patterns that seemed impossible. They could turn at angles that should have killed their pilots. They could accelerate faster than sensors could track. Led his squadron through the heart of the enemy fleet, destroying targets with precision that looked like magic. The pilots tried to fight back. They were brave. They were skilled. But they were facing technology that was generations ahead of their own. Their weapons could not hit ships that moved like shadows. Their shields could not stop weapons that slipped through like water. In 3 hours, they lost 5,000 ships. The humans lost 42. On the people watched their fleet burn in the sky above them. Fear turned to panic. Panic turned to anger, but not anger at the humans, anger at their own leaders. "This war was a mistake," voices shouted in the streets. "Al has killed us all." Protests began in the capital city, then in other cities, then across the entire planet. The people did not want to die for their warlord's pride. On the command ship, communications specialist intercepted an interesting transmission. She was a quiet woman who spent her days listening to enemy communications. Most of what she heard was boring. Orders, reports, complaints about food, but this transmission was different. "General," she reported urgently, "I am detecting communications between military commanders. They are discussing something." "What kind of something?" "A change in leadership, sir. I believe they are planning to remove High Warlord Al from command." General nodded slowly. This was what they had been waiting for, not military victory, a change in the enemy's will to fight. "Send this information to Ambassador Park," he ordered. "I believe she will know what to do with it." Ambassador Park had been waiting for this moment. She recorded a message and broadcast it across all frequencies, making sure every in the galaxy could hear. "People of the Empire," she began. "My name is Park. I speak for humanity. I am not speaking to your military. I am speaking to you, your families, your children, your hopes for the future." She paused, letting her words settle. "We do not want to destroy you. We remember what we did to the. We still carry that guilt. We do not want to become that thing again, so I am offering you something rare, peace, real peace, with no punishment, no occupation, no demands for territory or resources." Her voice grew softer. "All we ask is one thing. Remove High Warlord Al from power, choose new leaders. Leaders who want peace instead of death. Do this and the war ends today. Every prisoner will be returned. Every damaged ship will be repaired. We will help you rebuild. This is not a threat. This is a promise." The message spread across the like fire. People shared it with their neighbors. Soldiers shared it with their families. Even some officers on warships began to question why they were fighting. High Warlord Al heard the message too, and he made his final mistake. "They think they can turn my people against me," he screamed. "I will show them the price of such insults. Prepare the biological weapons. If I cannot have victory, I will have revenge. We will poison every human colony. Every man, woman, and child will die in agony." Sub-Warlord stepped forward. "High Warlord, this is madness. The war is already lost. If we use biological weapons against civilians, we become monsters. The entire galaxy will turn against us." "I do not care about the galaxy," Al roared. "I care about victory. Launch the weapons." Looked at his leader with new eyes. He saw not a proud warrior, but a broken creature willing to murder billions to protect his pride. In that moment, made a choice. He contacted the human fleet. "This is Sub-Warlord of the Empire. I am transmitting the locations of all biological weapon sites. Stop them, please. This is not what my people want." Bora received the coordinates aboard her transport ship. The Ghost Division was already in position near space, waiting for exactly this kind of mission. Within minutes, 12 strike teams launched toward the weapon sites. Al's officers tried to initiate the launch sequence. They entered the codes. They pressed the buttons. Nothing happened. "What is wrong?" Al demanded. "Why are the weapons not launching?" Alarms began screaming across the ship. Reports flooded in from every weapon site. Human soldiers had appeared inside the facilities. They had disabled the biological weapons. They had captured or killed the guards. They had done it all in perfect silence. "Impossible," Al whispered. "This is impossible." On the bridge of the command ship, the doors suddenly opened. Walked in, followed by a dozen generals. None of them looked happy. None of them showed the respect that Al expected. "High Warlord Al," said formally, "by the authority granted to us by the Council of War, you are removed from command. You are charged with crimes against the people. You are charged with attempting to use forbidden weapons against civilians." Two soldiers stepped forward and grabbed Al's arms. He tried to fight, but he was old and tired. The fire that had driven him was gone. All that remained was a broken warlord who had gambled everything and lost. "This is treason," he hissed. "No," replied quietly. "This is survival. The humans could have destroyed us all. They chose mercy instead. We would be fools to refuse it." Al was dragged away, screaming curses that no one listened to. That night, Ambassador received a message from the. It was short and simple. "We accept peace. We will choose new leaders through democratic vote. We ask only for one thing. Help us become better than we were." Smiled as she read the words. Tears formed in her eyes, but she did not let them fall. "Send a reply," she told her staff. "Tell them we would be honored." The war was over, and for the first time in 1,000 years, humanity had proven that strength and mercy could exist together. 1 year after the war ended, the Great Hall of Nexus Prime was full again. 200 species had gathered just like before, But this time the mood was different. This time there was no fear in the air, only wonder, only hope. Admiral stood in the same spot where he had stood when the war was declared. His uniform was crisp and clean. His face was calm. But if anyone looked closely, they could see something different in his eyes, a weight that had not been there before, the weight of a man who had done terrible things for good reasons. Ambassador Park stood beside him, her famous poker face softened into something warmer. Behind them sat Counselor O, watching the crowd with the same sharp eyes she always had. Some things never changed. The great doors opened and the new leader of the people entered. Consul was different from Al. She was younger. Her movements were calm and careful. Her eyes showed intelligence instead of aggression. She had been chosen by the people in their first free election. They had chosen peace. They had chosen hope. Elder Consul of the rose slowly from his ancient seat. He was over 100,000 years old. He had witnessed the rise and fall of 100 empires. He had seen the Silence War with his own eyes. And now, after all these centuries, he was about to see something he never expected. Today, announced in his cracked voice, humanity has agreed to unseal their true history. For the first time in 1,000 years, all species will see the truth about our friends, our protectors, our neighbors. A massive hologram appeared in the center of the hall. Ambassador stepped forward to control it. "What you are about to see is difficult to watch," she warned. "But it is necessary. If we are to move forward together, we must first understand where we have been." The hologram began to play. The assembly watched in horror as images of the Silence War filled the hall. They saw the attack on Earth. They saw cities burning. They saw millions dying. Then they saw something worse. They saw humanity's response. Human ships that moved like gods of war. Weapons that could destroy planets. Soldiers who fought with a fury that description. The images showed worlds burning, fleets crumbling, people screaming as their civilization was erased from existence. In 11 days, a species of 10 billion was reduced to nothing. Not even ruins remained. Some aliens in the assembly began to cry. Others turned away, unable to watch. A few species fled the hall entirely, overwhelmed by what they were seeing. Elder did not look away. Tears flowed down his ancient face, but he watched every moment. He remembered. He had been there. He had seen the fires burn. "We did this," Ambassador said when the hologram ended. "Humans did this. Not because we enjoyed it. Not because we wanted power. We did it because we were afraid. We did it because they gave us no choice. And when it was over, we looked at the emptiness where a civilization had been, and we were horrified." She paused, gathering her thoughts. "We could have conquered the galaxy after the Silence War. No one could have stopped us, but we chose differently. We sealed our weapons. We hid our ships. We spent 1,000 years trying to be something better, healers instead of killers, builders instead of destroyers. We hoped no one would ever force us to become that thing again." Consul stood up. Her voice was steady and strong. "As representative of the people, I offer our sincere apology for starting this war. We did not understand what we were provoking. We did not understand what humanity had chosen to become. We were fools." She turned to face Admiral directly. "But more importantly, I offer our gratitude. You could have destroyed us. You had every right. Instead, you offered mercy. You helped us rebuild. You showed us that power and kindness can exist together. This is a lesson that we'll never forget." A young in the crowd raised his hand. He was barely an adult, still learning about the galaxy. Consul nodded for him to speak. "Admiral," the young asked, "I have a question. When High Warlord Al declared war, you laughed. Everyone saw it. Why did you laugh at such a serious moment?" Admiral was silent for a long time. When he finally spoke, his voice was soft and sad. "I laughed because laughing was easier than crying. When Al declared war, I felt many things. I felt tired. I felt disappointed. I felt angry, but most of all I felt grief. Grief because I knew what was coming. I knew we would have to wake the sleepers. I knew we would have to become warriors again. I knew people would die. He paused and looked down at his hands. I laughed because I hoped Al would see that we were not afraid. I hoped he would wonder why we were not afraid. I hoped he would reconsider. I hoped we could avoid the blood that was coming. He looked up again. I was wrong. The war happened anyway, but at least we ended it with mercy instead of extinction. At least we proved that we had learned something from our past. The hall was completely silent. Every being watched the old human admiral with new understanding. Ambassador stepped forward once more. Humanity has a proposal for this assembly. We call it the Guardian Compact. We offer to protect any species that asks. We will defend your worlds. We will fight your enemies, but we will never conquer. We will never rule. We will only guard. She looked around the hall at all the gathered species. In return, we ask for nothing but friendship. Help us stay peaceful. Remind us to be kind. When we forget ourselves, tell us. When we drift toward darkness, pull us back. Be our conscience as we will be your shield. The vote was held immediately. 200 species voted yes. Not a single species voted no. The Guardian Compact was signed that day. Every leader pressed their mark onto the ancient document. Human. 200 signatures for 200 peoples. A promise to protect each other. A promise to grow together. After the ceremony, Admiral slipped away from the celebration. He took a small ship back to Earth. He had one more thing to do before he could rest. On a hillside outside the city where he was born, there was a small memorial. It had no name, no inscription, just a simple stone marker surrounded by flowers. This was the memorial for the species humanity had erased, the sin humanity could never fully wash away. Knelt before the stone. The evening sun was setting behind him, painting the sky in shades of orange and red. I do not know if any part of you remains, he whispered to the stone. I do not know if the dead can hear the living, but I want you to know that we remember. Every human remembers what we did to you. Every generation teaches the next. We will never forget the cost of our rage. He placed a single flower at the base of the stone. We chose to be better because of you. We chose mercy because we remember what happened when we chose destruction. You are gone, but you changed us forever. I hope, wherever you are, that means something. He stood slowly, his old knees protesting the movement. Behind him, he heard footsteps. Ambassador had followed him. The celebration is waiting for you, she said gently. Nodded, I know. I just needed to come here first, to remember why we fight so hard to be peaceful. Took his arm and they walked back toward the lights of the city together. Do you think we did the right thing? She asked, showing everyone the truth. Thought about it for a long moment. Yes, I think truth is better than lies even when truth is ugly. Now the galaxy knows what we are. They know what we can become. And they know we choose not to. That is worth something, maybe everything. Across the galaxy, the celebrations continued. Species that had been enemies learned to be friends. Walls that had stood for centuries began to fall. And deep beneath the mountains of human worlds, the great machines that had awakened for war slowly powered down. They returned to their endless sleep, waiting for a call that might never come again. The 1,000-year peace was over, but something better had taken its place. A peace built not on secrets but on truth, not on fear but on choice, not on weakness but on the strength to be gentle. And in the end, the galaxy learned the most important lesson of all. The most dangerous species is not the one that fights without mercy. It is the one that could destroy everything and chooses kindness instead. That is what makes humanity terrifying, and that is what makes humanity beautiful.